Hey everyone, it's me, your old pal Ryan. I hope your Friday is going exceptionally well. If it's not, well, I can't do anything about it except to say, get over it. I'm joking, of course. I wanted to do a mini discussion video on the state of PS Now. With Game Pass constantly expanding and getting larger and adding more and more value each and every week and every month, I thought it made sense to discuss PS Now, and if it can even be considered a competitor to Game Pass. Spoiler alert. Not exactly. But maybe with some tweaks, it can be. Obviously, before I begin, if you end up liking the video, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me, and it helps you feel good about yourself because, well, you helped me. Of course, if you're not a fan and need to see more or don't want to see any more, at least go and subscribe to someone else you do like. I'm sure they would appreciate it. Last year I was given some PlayStation money for my birthday, and PlayStation Now was on sale for $45 for the year, so I figured I would give it a try. This is of course after Sony allowed the ability to download and install PS4 games onto your console, or PS2 games that had a PS4 port, an essential improvement over the previous model of only being able to stream games. Quickly, I just want to say, you're going to see some PlayStation titles pop up on the screen here for the sake of having some B-roll gameplay. If any of them are on PS Now, I'll disclose it, kind of like this. I only say that because I don't want to give the impression that these games are on PS Now because they have them as B-roll or that I'm showing them. The first game that I streamed on PS Now was The Force Unleashed, a good game that never really found its place in the grander Star Wars universe. Whether you blame LucasArts or Disney for that is a whole other discussion. I then streamed Sly Cooper. Aside from some performance drops and even some disconnections, which to be clear, those times I disconnected were mainly because I had just built a computer and the Wi-Fi adapter I had purchased was not good. There were times that it did drop or have some issues on my PlayStation, but otherwise I think the streaming worked for that game just fine. But that is inherently the problem with wholeheartedly recommending streaming to you or anyone else, is that it really does depend on your network connection. I happen to have decent internet, so the streaming went pretty well. The first PS4 game I had downloaded and tried was Vampire. The download went smooth and I was able to play it without any issues. As a slight aside, I do have a 2021 review up for Vampire if you want some of my expanded thoughts, but I thought it was a flawed but better than average game and I enjoyed it quite a bit, so definitely check that out. Recently, I haven't used it too much except to now play the second Sly Cooper game after I beat the first one. I'll have more to say about that when I am done with it. So the point of me sharing all of that with you is that I'm not posturing myself as an individual with the utmost experience on PS Now, how it functions and how it performs, but I don't think that it's necessary for me to have spent years dissecting it and playing with it for me to give you my general thoughts on its current state, just like you don't need to eat ketchup with ice cream to know that it's probably gross. I just want to say definitively that I think PS Now is a lot better than people give it credit for, and when I say that, I don't mean to suggest that it is a good competitor to Xbox Game Pass. It just isn't. PS Now has a good amount of games on it and a decent amount that I think is worth your time. However, it's not as robust or as all-encompassing as Game Pass is. To be clear, I don't say that out of any animosity towards PlayStation. I am primarily a PlayStation player these days, but game recognizes game. The reason I say PS Now is better than you think it is that there are a whole lot of worthwhile titles on there. Let's start with some downloadable titles. First off, like I said before, you have Vampire, a great semi-open world role-playing game set in London during the Spanish flu epidemic. It's not scary, but it definitely has this gothic horror feel to it. It's on the jankier side, of course, but it's a game you can easily miss if you're just looking for perfection. And of course, you have God of War 3 Remastered, a great PS4 game, or rather PS3 game remastered for PlayStation 4. And no, what you're looking at is God of War 2018, or effectively God of War 4. God of War Remastered is a remaster of the third game on PlayStation 4. I didn't play the remastered, but the original game is excellent, and you might as well play the remaster if you can. Then there's Horizon Zero Dawn, Grim Fandango Remastered, Greedfall, Dishonored, all the Darksiders games, Infamous Second Son, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Detroit Become Human, Bloodborne, all of the Borderlands games, though the first game is streaming only, Cities Skylines, Destroy All Humans 1 and 2, Injustice 2, Payday 2, Rage 2, a lot of 2s, Red Faction, and more. Now, I'm not here telling you that I played every single one of those games, so I'm not giving a tacit endorsement of all of them. Some of them have varying qualities of styles and genres. I point to them just to say there's a lot more than I think we give it credit for, and that's all just the downloadable stuff. If you're willing to stream, there's definitely more options. I want to give the disclaimer that while I did not have major issues streaming myself, I can't fully endorse it as a viable option overall, considering everyone's internet setups are different and quality definitely varies. Just to name a few of the streamable games, a couple of the Batman games are on there, though it's the PS3 version, so if you want to play Arkham City or Arkham Asylum, you may just want to get the PS4 remasters if you're able to. Though Arkham Origins is on there, stranded on PS3. All great superhero games I very much recommend. There's Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and while I prefer New Vegas over 3, they're both great games. I don't know how well they age, but consider that they didn't run very well at launch on PlayStation anyway. All of the older God of War games are also on there to stream. You have a bunch of the Ratchet & Clank games, a bunch of the LEGO games, Star Wars The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, a few of the Sonic games, and the Uncharted games. And of course there's more. Again, I haven't tested all these games, I don't know how they perform on streaming individually, and your internet connection will vary. You may even consider just trying to track down a physical copy of the game and booting up your PS3 if you have one, since that's your only option, or checking if there's a PC version or PS4 port of some of the non-exclusive titles. Performance aside for a minute, there's a big chunk of games available that I think are solid, and I would even say you can download the PS Now app and stream on PC if that works better for you. So a PlayStation is not even necessarily required, which is a good benefit. That being said, PS Now is also kinda bad. It just doesn't do what I think it needs to prove itself worthy of your subscription. Keep in mind, PS Now was over $100 for a year subscription. It's now $60, effectively $5 a month if you buy yearly. Yes, there's over 800 games on the service, that's true, but more than half of those are streaming, and Sony recommends you having a network connection of 5 megabits per second. But as has been reported before, and even some of my own experiences have shown, you may want a faster connection to be safe. An article written by Mark Delaney at Games Radar suggests that in their experience, most games experience issues with streaming up to about 35 megabits per second, and then you don't have any more issues generally. So the lack of being able to download PS3 titles does harm the service, or at least its value proposition. It's got a big gaping hole in its incentive structure, at least for me. But this goes to Sony's seemingly outright dismissal or refusal to focus on expanding backwards compatibility, at least on the PS5. And if it is something they're working on, they haven't said anything definitive thus far. Add to that, the service is just missing some key titles. For example, you can only stream the third Resistance game. Where's the first and second one? What about Max Payne 3? Dead Space 3 appears to be on PS Now, but what about 1 and 2? PlayStation Now is missing a lot of must-play titles, including some that are exclusive to PlayStation. It begs the question, what are they doing? You can argue, and you would be right, that there is good value to the service at $60 a year, and that it's gotten better since it launched. You'd also be right there. But it's still a far cry from where it needs to be. I mean, hell, Sony doesn't even put a lot of their first-party exclusives on here at release. If they do, it's sometimes years after launch. Horizon Zero Dawn came to the service in January of last year, only to be removed in April, and then added back permanently in December of 2020. So again, I ask, what are they doing? I do like PlayStation Now, but it's not what it needs to be considered a direct competitor to Game Pass. Though I don't necessarily think Sony needs to respond to Xbox Game Pass with their all-encompassing version of the service. If I were Sony, and to be clear, I'm not, I think a good solution or response to Game Pass, especially with the shutting down of the PlayStation 3 and the Vita digital storefronts, is to add to that value proposition I talked about before. Meaning, they could use PS Now as their base. I would say figure out a way to get PS3 and even Vita games, if possible, to download and be played natively, at least on the PlayStation 5 console, and you now just up the value of being in on the new hardware. If Microsoft can figure it out, so can Sony. I would then add some critically missing titles from the PlayStation Now lineup, like the other Resistance games, for example. Furthermore, I would expand backwards compatibility, at least on the PlayStation 5. Let players put their old discs in the console, or even merge some of the old storefronts if possible, and allow people to purchase those older games if they choose. And lastly, I would continue delivering the high-quality PlayStation exclusive titles they're known for. I of course am not the most tech-savvy or even business-savvy individual, and I never claim to be, but I think there's definitely space here for Sony to add to that value proposition. I recognize some of my ideas may be not workable, or at least workable in the way I describe them. I just think there's room for PlayStation to grow and expand the value it offers to gamers. The idea here is to not tell you that PlayStation Now has no value, because by the volume of product it has alone, it does. It's about how can they make the service better and more consumer-friendly and even easier to use. I don't think they need to have their own Game Pass, at least right now. Microsoft is a bit of a different beast. It's clear they could spend more money than we could ever see in a lifetime on Game Pass, and it would never even have to be profitable for them. And I say that as somebody who likes and supports Game Pass. Anyway, this video is not intended to be this long, but thanks for listening either way to my thoughts on PlayStation Now. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and please take to the comments to give me your thoughts. Maybe you're happy with with the way things are. I generally am okay, but I think it's important to be forward thinking. Am I right? Am I wrong? Or I am? Don't answer that last one. And as usual, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you don't, and of course I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.